John Sanchez Show on News Talk KOH. It's a pleasure to be with you and a great pleasure to be with my partner, Mr. Jason Gaunt. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well. It's been a while.
Yeah,
I
really?
feel like, you know,
Turkey Day came in the way and, all that stuff.
I feel like I'm
AI
still
Mondays. I mean,
carrying
there's
it.
all
I
kinds of
know.
reasons.
I know.
Yeah, it's all right.
I miss that show. I think it's fun, but there's too much data for 3 people to be discussing
Well,
simultaneously.
really four because Bailey joins in.
Bailey's
So
on,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I see
it's
Bailey. Yeah, I see Bailey does
yeah.
great.
Yep. Oh, she does. Yeah. I was teasing, or actually, I was joking with my wife afterwards, after the show on Monday, and I said, she goes, "Why, Bailey sounds so good on the show, and she's always does an amazing job." And I said, "Yeah, see, I got a hidden agenda. It's like my precursor. It's my future retirement plan. There, it's like when I step aside at some point, got the Sanchez name at least,
Done.
to be with
Yeah.
Sanchez Gaunt. So
She has to
just
keep it if she gets married.
yeah,
Yeah,
there
that's
you
the thing.
go." There you go. That I didn't think about that. And she is
Make her a
engaged. So.
doctor.
Yeah, that's true. Well, wouldn't that be something? Yeah. Well, I think we all should get our doctors. What the heck? You have the brains, I don't. Let me tell you what we have lined up for you folks. All right. So here's the situation. We came across a really great study. It was a survey that was conducted by BMO. And in this survey, it caught our attention because this is something we deal with a lot with our clients. And I know many financial advisors do. And it's one of the most dangerous myths when it comes to marriage. And we've titled it, He Handles the Money. Let me repeat that. He handles the money. How many of you that are in a relationship, marriage, dating, whatever the case is, have entrusted the man to be the CFO of the family? Yep. There you go. That's the way it is for many of us. Well, this new study by BMO shows that women who join their spouses in an advisor meeting, like with Jason and I, are twice as confident navigating divorce, twice as confident navigating widowhood, or any major life change. So, ladies, guess what? This isn't about mistrust. This is about empowerment. It's about protection, and it's about owning your financial future. So, us men, you men, step aside because it's all about the ladies in our lives. Jason and I are going to help you navigate what to do when you are a woman and you have not been involved in the family finances, because at some point, the odds are statistically that you are going to be alone. Again, us men die first. Divorces, north of 50% of marriages, unfortunately, are failing in marriage. North of 50% of marriages fail and obviously end up in divorce. There's a lot of reasons. And many, many women find themselves 100%, Jason, ill prepared, not because they're dummies, not because of anything else. Matter of fact, studies have shown, and I would agree to this one, I think women are better investors than us men. They're more patient. They're more understanding. Women are phenomenal family CFOs, but the way society is, and especially the older generation, but I still see it, Jason, in the younger side of it too. So, it's out there. Matter of fact, only 36% of women who deferred money decisions felt confident handling finances during or after a divorce. Only 36%. So, again, we're talking all age groups here, but we're going to stop all that because hope and pray that each and every one of you are in a lifetime lasting marriage. You never get a divorce. We're inevitably going to lose our spouses at some point. But when this time comes, we want you to be so well prepared. And so what we're going to go over with everybody today is how we can make sure that our spouses are involved in the family finances, because the worst thing that can happen is, again, and I'm going to start the segment real quickly, Jason, before we get to the stock market recap of one story. And I've shared it. It's been a while, so I'm going to do it real quickly again. I was a brand new broker, 2 years, into the business or so. Had a couple by the name of Elvira and Walter. Well, they were at that point, they were like in their 70s, and I was 25, 26 years old. So, they seemed ancient to me. Now it's not that far away. But Walter, of course, that being an older generation, he handled every bit of the family finances. He would come into the office, and of course, this was before internet. He'd come into the office and he'd stand in our lobby in front of the Quotron machine and follow his stocks. He was, that old school kind of guy. And then he'd come in and have an account review with me and plop down a whole set of, papers that had coffee stains all over them. But by gosh, he knew where every penny that he and Elvira had. Well, like it usually happens, Walter passes away. Elvira is left with everything. Not one time, and I don't know, they were a client for about 5 years. Not one time did Elvira ever show up for an account review. She had no idea. Walter dies. Now, Elvira and her daughter come to me and go, "Where is everything?" And I'm like, "Well, he had a couple of accounts with me, but I knew he had a lot of other stuff, life insurance policies, etc." And I'm like, obviously I know what he has with me, but we don't know about anything else. Well, poor Elvira, was completely at a loss. She didn't know where the life insurance was. She didn't know anything. Well, as we see happen a lot of times for people that are married, for whatever reason this happens, Elvira passes away within about a year of Walter dying. Okay, so now it's left on the daughter. That's right, her name was Lois. So Lois and I then decided to play detective, and we had to go through Walter's shoeboxes and file cabinets and in his closet. And I mean, you talk about a, you know, prying eyes. It did not feel comfortable doing that, but we had to dig in and find out where Walter had everything. I wouldn't say hidden, but it was hidden in a sense. He didn't really want his wife to know. She didn't know, and he didn't let his daughter know. So it literally took us, Jason, close to a year to finally uncover where everything was. And of course, the poor daughter, she didn't get a chance to really, mourn the loss of
More.
not one, but two parents, because her time was devoted trying to figure out where everything was. And so, we don't ever want that to happen. And it doesn't need to. And that's why, periodically we like to do these shows and remind everybody the importance of having communication with your significant other when it comes to finances. But again, we're not really going to focus on the death side. We're going to focus more on the divorce and splitting up and so on and so forth for the woman.
Yeah, I mean, I love it when husband and wife are in account
Absolutely.
reviews and discovery meetings for all those reasons. Ultimately, because neither of them have all the information. Undoubtedly, one tends to focus more on finances than the other, and some share completely in it. But even the one that claims to know everything, I hear, probably a lot more than one would expect from the other spouse of, well, we have this, and what about that, and what about that, and so I think that's the part too, is to have both people adding value to what is a very necessary joint conversation that doesn't typically go quite as well when you have incomplete information, especially
Yes.
from where you and I sit on the
Yes.
financial planning side. I always say I'm only as good as what you tell me,
That's
right?
right.
And
That's right.
so
That's right.
in your
Well, to
case
that
of Elvira, et cetera, it makes it.
to that point, and folks, this goes for those of you that don't have Sanchez Gaunt managing your finances. It makes it really difficult for us, the advisor, when we've only had a relationship, as Jason said, with just one spouse, right? Because if the other spouse passes away, or if the one that we have the relationship with passes away, it's like a brand new relationship. We don't know them, they don't know us. Usually they don't know what the investments are, etc. So there is not really, I can't think of one positive reason to exclude your spouse from, meeting with your financial advisor and understanding things and being involved. There really isn't. I mean, even if you detest, I've had this with clients over the years, even if you detest money, which I know many of you do, it's like, I don't know the stock market. I don't understand it. I don't want to be involved with it. That's why, I let my husband handle it. You have an obligation at least once a year, just once a year, go in and meet with your spouse and your financial advisor, just so they know who you are and you can talk about things. And I promise you, you do it once, and they're going to go, you know what? I need to be involved in this.
Yeah, it is. And some people feel like it's their role in the relationship
Hmm.
too. I see that a lot, right? Where one of them may have retired before the other, right? And they have
Right.
this like
Right.
sense of inadequacy. And I'm just being honest. Like we do a lot of EQ stuff in this role too. It's not just staring at stock charts and telling people to
Yes.
buy or sell, right? There's a lot of therapy involved in this role, which I and you too love, right? But
Absolutely.
we see a lot of those things where people tend to hold these things tight as, well, I'm going to go without her or she's going to go without him because I feel like this is what I do now and I don't, want them to be involved. And it's healthy to just ask those questions and be involved in those meetings, both with us or whomever you're
Hmm.
working with. But it's daunting, especially when something happens, a divorce, a
Yes.
death, et cetera, because now there's emotions and I promise you're thinking of much better mind now than when you're going
Hmm.
through those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that's going to be a great topic. We'll get to that when we come back from the break. But in the meantime, Mr. Gaunt, the floor is yours. Let's talk about this crazy ride we went on today.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we've talked about it a lot. You've talked about it on shows too. Is the ironically crypto to some extent sort of wagging the dog a bit? You had some strength in Bitcoin today and some of the others. Weak in the morning and then strong in the afternoon. Robinhood was strong. Coinbase was strong. It is a risk barometer. It's not to say that Bitcoin is truly driving the market, but it is a one of the canaries you're staring at as you're analyzing said gold mine for risk on, risk off. more data around potentially Kevin Hazlitt or someone that is going to be rate friendly if you're someone who wants lower interest rates. Either sooner or later we'll get an announcement. I think the market's warming up to that, knowing that there'll be a looser, at least, economy over the next
You're talking
couple
about
of
the next
years.
Fed chairman
Yep,
potentially.
exactly. And I think the market's excited about that. Some of the consumer areas, Dollar Tree, American Eagle had good results. Like, you're seeing the consumer discretionary sector, biotech acts really well. We've talked about that a lot in a lower interest rate, high AI economy. Healthcare, biotech have been perking up. Banks were
Home
strong
builders,
today. Home builders with
they
lower
were just
rate expectations. So
ripping today.
there's lots of cool pockets. You don't have to just be
Yeah.
sitting in tech. Other areas are starting to, pick up the ball and run. Small caps acted well. These are the markets I like. I like, lots of things moving around where you can make money, and they're much more fun than that. You better own full send Mag
Yeah.
7 or you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
That's
a little
it.
more healthy. And
Well,
we had
speaking
a
of
little bit
tech,
of
one of
data.
the
Yeah, you had
yeah,
data
no,
today
great.
too.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. Speaking of tech, just want to squeeze these in real quick. Microsoft is one of the problems today. Did not really have an impact whatsoever on the Dow side of things. Well, I mean, it did, but still had a very strong day on the Dow. But this organization called The Information, they're a news organization. They reported this morning that they had heard through their sources that Microsoft had lowered their AI software sales quotas, and that some customers were resisting newer products. And then really, I didn't see anything. I don't know. I think it just came out towards the close, or maybe after the close. Microsoft finally came out, one of their spokespersons, and said, no, this isn't right. They told that to CNBC. And then The Information changed their headline to reflect that the company is lowering AI sales growth targets, not sales quotas. So, oops, little
Semantics.
little semantics there. Exactly. Yeah. So you find yourself in a lawsuit when you make those kind of mistakes from your news organization. Anyways, Microsoft ended up down about 2.5%, $12.27 loss to $477.73. NVIDIA gave up about $1.87. Jensen Huang was in Washington visiting with the president today, but didn't have any positive impact. Home builders, as we said, D.R. Horton up $6.54, Lennar $3.43 rise. All right, you're up to date. We'll hit the commodities when we come back and then get into our topic, why every woman needs a seat at the financial table. That is our topic for you. Let's turn it over to Kristen Snow right now. Traffic Center. Hello, Miss Kristen Snow. Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH with Jason Gaunt. All right, here's how we finished up for the day. A 408 gain on the Dow, 0.86% to a close of 47,882. NASDAQ rose 40 and the S&P higher by 20. Commodity-wise, we rose 28 cents on oil to $58.95 a barrel, $12.20 gain on gold. Closed there, $1,232.30 an ounce, down 3 basis points on the 10-year at a yield of 406 close. All right, one big earnings report after the close was Dow Component Salesforce, symbol CRM. Just real quickly hit the numbers, tell you what the stock's doing in the after hours. Earnings per share came in at $3.25. $2.86. Revenue slightly amiss, $10.26 billion. Estimates $10.27 billion. Right now, the stock in the after hours up $4.80, a 2.01% gain to $243.52. Closed the day with a $4 and a penny gain, 1.71% at $238.72. All right, Jason, anything else you want to add on the market side? Or are we ready to roll?
I think we're ready to roll. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. Once again, why every woman needs a seat at the financial table. All right. So listen up, ladies. This is all about you. Here we go. So as I started the show with, we came across a very interesting survey by BMO. It was a survey of millionaire women who who have been divorced at least 5 years. Now, in this survey, only 36% of women who deferred money decisions felt confident handling finances during or after the divorce. Nearly 64% of those who helped manage finances felt confident, and women who equally shared money management were the strongest. 68% said they were confident and that they stay the same before and after divorce. So once again, the stats are showing if you are involved in the family finances, you're going to be more confident. And Jason, I want to hit on this last point of the survey, or this last point I just mentioned, which is they were confident enough to stay the course. In other words, they did not make any radical changes in their portfolios, so on and so forth. I think that was that portion right there of the survey was a real testament that, again, they understood what they had before the divorce. They understand what they have after the divorce. Maybe they have more, a bit about who got the 50% portion. But again, I think it just solidifies the importance of being involved in the finances. And also, very important point to take away is a divorce is like losing a loved one, right? To death. Your life is turned upside down, your finances, everything's upside down. Same advice we give when someone loses a loved one: don't make any rash decisions, right? Give it time. Even if you think, my God, my husband's portfolio was not what I would want. Relax a little bit, get through the divorce, get after that, and then wait and see where things are, where you're going in your life, etc., before you make major radical changes. Because sometimes you go, I want zero that man had in that portfolio, I want to start all over. So be really careful on that side of it.
I mean, I think the point where you mentioned that the confidence stays the same before and after divorce, or we can put death in there if we want to make it not as dark of a show. I guess death is still dark, but anyway, it's the financial literacy part gives you confidence with everything. Any amount of education literacy would teach you some of the things that you've been saying is, give it time, don't make rash decisions, but also if you understand at least loosely what's inside of the investments or what your cash flow, how it's derived, right? A lot of people just don't want to care. I know we get money from this thing that says, brokerage account X, and it just keeps on coming, right? Whereas if both husband and wife are involved in the conversations, you understand what the machine is doing. You understand
Yes.
what the advisor is doing with you, and cash flow planning and portfolio construction and so on and so forth, that you don't have to be a PhD, but at least having enough of a knowledge base to feel comfortable before or after any life-changing event it spawns from the education part, is just being involved and knowing a bit of what's going on.
You sparked something in my mind as you were saying that. And I don't know about you, but I don't see it enough, and I wish we would see it more. So I'm going to throw it out there to everybody. If you are contemplating a divorce and you have a great relationship, as you should, with your financial advisor, sit down with your financial advisor before the attorneys get their hand on everything, because you would be amazed at a good financial advisor, which I consider obviously Jason and I in that category, can be that, in a sense, I hate to use the word mediator, but that mediator to talk about what the investments are. Because many times, folks, divorce attorneys do not have the knowledge of the investments. We have seen it. I'm going to do a whole show on what some attorneys have told clients, how to distribute assets. And I mean, I've been yelled at by attorneys that they wanted the IRA to be split before the qualified domestic relation, or the quadro, was signed by the judge. Well, that would have been a taxable distribution by the man in my example, before he gave it to his wife. Get your financial. We're not going to sit here and play marriage counselor with you. I'll tell you that. I have saved some marriages, I'll be proud to say, but that's not the purpose of the meeting. The purpose is to say, look at folks, this is what you have. These are the investments. She's got this, he's got that. Here's the tax ramifications, etc. That way, when you do sit down with your respective divorce attorneys, you have an idea, because all you're going to do is you're just going to fill out a form with those divorce attorneys and say, I've got an account here and an IRA there, and so on and so forth. Most of them that I know of, they don't have the expertise to get into how all these, especially when you get into more sophisticated investments like institutional money managers and annuities and different things like that. That's what you have the financial advisor for. So include he or she in that, pre-attorney, pre-divorce discussion. Again, they're not going to play marriage counselor with you, but at least give you the knowledge and everything that both of you need to make informed decisions. And then feel free to always tell your divorce attorney to reach out to your financial advisor. They may have you sign a form indicating that they can release information to your divorce attorney, but just real life advice from that side of it. All right, when we come back from the break, we're going to move to our second point, which is the hidden dangers of he handles the money. Let's turn it over to Jack Sabin, news, traffic, and weather. Jack, welcome back to the Jon Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH with Jason Gaunt. Once again, we finished with a strong day on the Dow, at least 408 rise. NASDAQ gained 40, the S&P higher by 20. Our topic, why every woman needs a seat at the financial table. Let's recap what we're talked about so far. Great study we're talking about from BMO, a survey of millionaire women who have been divorced at least in the last 5 years. 36% of the women who deferred money decisions felt confident handling finances during and after the divorce. 64% of those who helped manage finances, they felt confident. And women who equally shared money management responsibilities with their spouse were the strongest. 68%. They had confidence staying in the same investments before and after the divorce. Now, what are the hidden dangers of the he handles the money scenario? Let's go through our points. Number one. So if you're leaving everything to the man, is what I mean by he handles the money. Number one, lack of financial literacy and confidence when life changes suddenly. Number two, limited visibility into the true financial picture, meaning the debts, the assets, the risk, as we discussed. Number three, vulnerable in divorce negotiations, unequal settlements, slower recovery, costly mistakes. Number four, retirement risk, not knowing if you have enough saved or even if you're on any of the retirement accounts. No stories we could give you on that one. And then tax and legal surprises if the spouse made poor decisions. Liabilities can hit both partners. Don't forget about that. So, Jason, let's tackle those real quickly. Lack of financial literacy and confidence when life changes suddenly.
Yeah, I mean, I think rounding them all together is if you're not involved, you're not comfortable with where things are. As I talked to you about before, some people just identify with this is my role in the relationship. It can be him, it could be her. Like you said, oftentimes it's him. You know, they mention mistakes in here, right? Where you may be like concerned about maybe he's more risky and doesn't tend to do well with risk, or vice versa, too conservative, and your portfolios aren't growing like they should. And that's just having a second opinion, right? I mean, we're discussing divorce and confidence. This doesn't have to be because you plan to get divorced, but just having this knowledge and having a relationship with the advisor is so helpful. I mean, one of the points, John, that you and I were talking about off air is, there's times where as advisors we get put in the middle. You mentioned before on the show too, and it's not through intent, right? It's because one of the two of the folks is who you've been talking to. And I've been on both sides with a relationship with the wife or a relationship with the husband, where when there's unsettled waters or a pending divorce, they feel like, oh, well, you're just, you're going to look out for them and not me, and so on and so forth, where that's not the case. It's merely because you haven't been involved before, right? Like, we always do everything we can holistically for the family, but it's incumbent on you as the other spouse to also be present in those meetings and not defer to say, oh, well, he handles it or I don't like money, and then later be frustrated because you have an incomplete picture. We all need to just take ownership in parts of these things, because stuff does come up and
It does.
things do change. But having a good relationship with your financial advisor, your CPA, a family attorney, all those things, it's always healthy to make sure that you're, in a healthy relationship, working together on all those things. But
And
if
believe it
one
or
of the
not,
two of you does it, make sure you're involved.
this is going to surprise many of you, but this is at least in our practice, the more money you have, the more the responsibility falls on one person's shoulders.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. I find that is the case. It does tend to be one of the two of them with larger clients, and it's because everyone's busy too, right? We all have roles with these, even if it's an annual review. Just make sure that you
That's
go.
what I
It's
said. Yeah, at least once a year,
great.
come in. At
A
least
hundred
once a year.
percent. 100%.
Jump on a Zoom. If you can't make the meeting, jump on a Zoom meeting with us. Yeah, it doesn't matter. All right, let's go to our next point. Why this even matters in what we call a great marriage. You got to remember, divorce isn't the only risk. We have death, we have disability of a spouse can be just as disruptive as a divorce. Women tend to live longer than men, which we always discuss, meaning they're more likely to be, quote, the last one standing financially. And you can love and trust your spouse and still insist on being financially informed, which doesn't require much more explanation. Now, let's talk about the advisor relationship risk, as Jason was just mentioning. You see, folks, and this tends to be the case in the majority, for whatever reason, when the husband is the only one that is in the meeting, the advisor bond is usually with him. Again, as Jason said, not intentional, just the way it ends up. But after a death or a divorce, many women are suddenly alone. And they don't have the most important word, which is trust in that financial advisor, because they don't have the relationship. She may have enjoyed all the years of labor and hard work of that advisor, building wealth for the family and so on and so forth. And you may love that advisor because you bear the fruits of it, right? But then when the spouse is gone, you're going, well, wait a minute, especially in a divorce, like Jason said, oh my God, that advisor is only going to work with my ex-husband. I got to go find someone new. You don't have to. And that's why I said earlier, please, if you're having marriage troubles, let your financial advisor know. And again, whether you're both are going to stay with him or her, or one's going to go one way and one's going to go another to a different advisor, it's best if they understand what exactly is going on in your life. After death or divorce, again, you find yourself alone, you need help, right? Don't make any rash decisions. And then the third point is why every advisor meeting, as we keep harping on, should include both spouses, and why women should not just, come there and I've had this happen. This drives me nuts. Wife comes in. This tends to be with the older generation, Jason. Wife comes in, and I had one client where you could tell the husband drug her in, and she would sit there and she would knit as I did my account review of them. Never raise her head, never utter a word, and just sit there and knit. And then the meeting's over, and she puts her knitting in her bag, and they walk out.
It's
But
so funny. I love
yeah,
those because I talk to her.
well,
I
I do too. I
honestly
try.
just
Oh, yeah, I
talk
know.
right
I
to
know.
her, and oftentimes, like you said, it's a function of comfort or I don't like the money. But eventually
Yeah.
they have everyone has
And he
opinions,
ended up
right?
dying
You're
first. So, yep.
right, and you know me, those are the fun ones, So and it's incumbent on the advisor too to not just go talk to the person that's the student who's the most engaged, right?
I'll give you
Yeah,
I'll give all of you a little hint to see if you have a good financial advisor. So if you have that meeting where, the relationship, let's just say, is with the husband, and the wife is, quote, drugged to the meeting to go over the annual review or whatever. If your advisor is only looking at your husband because he's the one that he's always dealt with, email, account reviews, etc., and he's not giving you eye contact, fire him or her. I've seen that over and over again. That means she has no respect for you as the spouse. Fire them, because it'll never work. That needs to be an equal conversation. I've seen that so many times over the years where people are like, hey, hey, I'm over here. And, the advisor just like, oh, no, I'm going golfing with your husband next weekend. And, we're buddies and all that. No. That's not the way it works. Okay. So let's get to some solutions here. What are the practical ways for women to get financially involved now? Okay, number one, sit at the financial table, attend every meeting with the advisor, with the CPA, with the estate planning attorney. When you get your annual trust review, sit down with the estate planning attorney. When you get your taxes done, be involved in that decision. Number two, learn the basics, like we talk about each and every day on this program: budgeting, investing, credit, retirement plans, insurance, estate documents. We see this all the time. All the credit is in the husband's name. Husband's gone, divorce, death, whatever. Wife has no credit, and good luck trying to establish credit, because usually they don't have a job either, if we're talking later in life. The other point that we always talk about: keep a secure binder, or better yet, a digital file of all the accounts, all the logins, the insurance policies, the estate plan, beneficiaries, titling, names, address, phone numbers, contact information of all your advisors. And volunteer for specific tasks. Get involved in the family finances. We're not way beyond the scope of just coming to the advisors meeting. Pay some of the bills, track the spending, help with the tax prep, review the statements, so on and so forth. Show some interest. And again, it's a lot more fun in life when your spouse is involved in the family finances than when they're not, because you now are kind of both working towards a commonality goal, where before it's like, just leave it up to my husband to go do it all, and hopefully there's going to be some money there when he's gone. But no, get involved with it. Be involved in the whole planning process. All right, we got some more points for you women when we come back. Let's wrap it up with Kristen Snow, the Rain Out Traffic Center. Kristen. Welcome back to the John Sanchez Show on News Talk 780 KOH with Jason Gaunt. All right, we've been talking about why every woman needs a seat at the financial table. I was just thinking we should have done this before Thanksgiving, right? The Thanksgiving table.
yeah, the financial table,
Tied
yeah.
that in a lot better. Man, I failed on that one. All right, now, what do we need to do to become better educated as far as the family finances when you're a woman? All right, so the pretty basic stuff. This isn't going to surprise you. Obviously, tune into our show each and every day, because we cover so many different things. Please go pick up our podcast at your favorite podcast distributor. There's hundreds of, well, I think over 1,000 now, if I remember right.
Wow.
Yeah, all the shows that we have done over the years, and just about every topic we've covered. Educate yourself, bottom line. Take online courses, attend some of our webinars, so on and so forth. Focus on progress. Don't just focus on perfection, right? We build confidence through repetition and involvement. And that's the goal of today's discussion, is to build your confidence. Now, what do we do, Jason, if divorce is on the horizon, right? It kind of seems imminent.
Yeah, I mean, obviously building a team of some kind: attorneys, fiduciary, financial advisor, an accountant, right? Just folks that'll be helpful in some of the areas that maybe you don't have core strengths, trying to get information on the what do you have, right? What kind of assets do you
And do
have?
not lie, because they will find out, and judges do not like that.
And the emotion part, which is very difficult to say, but emotions and investing don't tend to go very well together. And so again, having someone who can be calm handling your assets instead of you doing it yourself is typically tends to be very fruitful, for sure.
And Also, folks, keep in mind, this is why, again, you need to have the team, as Jason mentioned. People can get themselves in a real bind when it comes to the primary residence. You go, oh, you know what, we're married, but we can make $500,000 profit and not pay any taxes on that. Well, the rules are significantly different when you get a divorce. Doesn't matter if the divorce is in September, October, or you got it on January the 1st. So be very, very careful on that one. Otherwise, you may get stuck with only a $250,000 exclusion. Same on the income taxes. You're going to be in for a major surprise the first time you have to file taxes as single when you've been filing married. Significantly higher tax liability in most cases. So again, this is where your team comes into play. Now, how should someone in our shoes, we are fiduciary advisors, how should we guide women? Okay. First thing we want to do is we want to educate, not intimidate, right? We can throw as much jargon out there as a good physician can, but it doesn't benefit anybody. It makes us sound really smart, but in reality, we don't care. We want everybody to understand. So make sure your advisor is talking to you in plain English. No Wall Street jargon. Again, encourage joint meetings, equal participation. Don't just show up and be the bump on the log. Show up, participate, ask questions. Another interesting point, Jason, is stress testing the portfolio, the net worth, right? How would this happen? How would the portfolio react if you're on your own tomorrow, right? If those assets are cut in half, right? You may have $1 million saved up in your retirement, but guess what? It's a lot different when you have $500,000, for both of them, especially if you're drawing income. And then what would you say is our last call to action?
I think if you were on your own tomorrow, would you be okay? I mean, I think that's the biggest part. And I mean, again, you cut the assets in half, you don't cut the costs in half, right? You still both need to live somewhere. You both need to pay rent somewhere. You both need to eat, right? There's a lot of costs that aren't just 50%.
Absolutely. All right. We'd love to work with you if this is something of interest to you. We have a lot of experience in it. God bless. Have a great afternoon. See you, Jay.
Jon Sanchez is a registered investment advisor, and the opinions expressed by Sanchez Gaunt Capital Management, LLC on this show are their own and do not reflect the opinions of News Talk 780 or its parent company, Cumulus Media. All statements and opinions expressed are based upon information considered reliable, although it should not be relied upon as such. Any statements or opinions are subject to change without notice. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Information expressed does not take into account your specific situation or objectives and is not intended as recommendations appropriate for any individual. Listeners are encouraged to seek advice from a qualified tax, legal, or investment advisor to determine whether any information presented may be suitable for their specific situation. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.